Hello and welcome to Story Untold. I'm Martin Bauman, and my guest this week has been called the most important basketball player in the world. Royce White is his name. His NBA career lasted just 3 games over 3 different teams, but it's what he's done to put mental health in the conversation that's made him a rarity in pro sports. In fact, he's probably done more for pushing mental health to the forefront than any other player in the history of the league. Royce was taken 16th overall by the Houston Rockets in 2012, and he was just named MVP of the National Basketball League of Canada, setting a league record for triple-doubles in his season with the London Lightning. In college, he was the only player in the country to lead his team in all 5 major categories: points, assists, rebounds, blocks, and steals. But he's most known for his battle with the NBA on its mental health policy, saying the league is behind the times on supporting its players. Now on a team in the midst of a playoff run after a historic season, he looks back on it all, talking about his mental health battles growing up and calling out everyone in the league from David Stern to Michael Jordan to Kobe Bryant. A word of warning, there is strong language in this episode, but man, is it worth listening to. Here's his story. So I think often when people meet each other, so often the first thing is, how are you? And it's more of a ritual almost than a conversation. But I think especially with mental health, it's almost a missed opportunity for a real deeper conversation. So with that in mind, how are you?
I am always appreciative of the things that I do have, while understanding of the things that I don't have. So in that regard, I would say that I'm doing good, but I could be doing better.
I think that's most of us, yeah. You're on this really amazing run right now at the London Lightning. You've made this city your home. The Lightning have shattered records in the league right now when it comes to total wins, win streak. When it comes to points per game, you've set records when it comes to triple doubles. Tell me about the season and what it's been like for you.
The season's been incredible. I think people underestimate or take for granted the accomplishments of sports teams that aren't in primary leagues, like the NHL or the MLB or the NFL or the NBA. And because there isn't such a spectacle put on to let you understand the journey, which is what ultimately has brought those leagues to the pinnacle that they're at in these different sports that they are, the front league in. I don't care if you play at the YMCA Rec League, you know what I mean? And your team only practices together or plays together once a week, and then you play a game once a week, or maybe you don't practice at all. There's a struggle that you go through when you are a part of a team, and there's a bit of yourself that you have to give to be on a team for a season or an extended length of time. And 35-5, 90% win rate. Records are incredible and always fun. But it's the little things that you don't see that made the season really special. Like how hard our coach works is huge. How much our fans, our diehard fans that are really close to the organization, contribute. And how much the guys really enjoy each other and want to do well for each other. And that's what people can't see. And hopefully, the mini-series that I'm doing right now, The Last Renaissance, will show a little bit of that. It's never like being there, but at least give you a glimpse into what that is. And we can go out and finish the season the right way and get a championship and really put ourselves in stone.
Tell me about the way that this city has embraced you, the way that the fans have embraced you here in London.
Yeah, the fans have been incredible. They understand me, it seems. I had a dad come up to me at the game yesterday and tell me that he had a son that dealt with anxiety, and that's why he was a big fan of mine. It had nothing to do with basketball, really. He was introduced to the story through basketball, but it really had nothing to do with basketball. It had to do with a bigger common struggle. So, yeah, the fans definitely embrace me here, and people continue to embrace me. I'm sure there's people in London right now. I'm positive there's people in London right now that deal with mental health on some level, and if they knew my story more intimately, they would be big fans too. And I'm big fans of the people that I meet too, that are able to share that shit with me. I actually, if more than anything, I feel bad that I can't reciprocate that energy back to them, like how much I actually admire people sharing that shit with me.
I want to go back, if you don't mind, to when your love for the game started. Tell me about when you first picked up a basketball, what that time was like.
First picked up a basketball. I must have been 5 or 6, so I barely remember. I remember being young, though, playing the game a lot by myself at the park. And I remember pretending like I was other players, NBA players.
Who were the guys that you were emulating at the time?
Well, Jordan. I mean, I'm born in 91. So at 6'7", I must have been, Jordan at his prime.
That's that second three-peat,
Yeah. So, it was definitely Jordan. Then it became KG. But I always liked teams, too. Like, I was a fan of the Sacramento Kings at one point. They had a couple of really good teams that played really fundamental basketball. Like, if you remember those Kings teams that gave the Lakers a run for their money in the early 2000s?
Team with Peja, Vladdy on the team, Weber.
Weber and Vladdy and Bibby and, those teams, they played good basketball. So did the Portland Trailblazers back then. So did the Spurs. You know what I mean? So I was a fan of teams, so sometimes I would pretend I was a whole team by myself.
So it wasn't a strictly Timberwolves thing for you, being a guy from Minnesota?
No, I'm a diehard Minnesota fan, but no, that'd be like only listening to Minnesota musicians or only watching movies with actors that are from Minnesota. That's ludicrous.
One thing that really excites me about talking to you is you being a person that has been putting mental health at the forefront in sports. I think, especially too at a time in years past when not a lot of athletes were upfront about talking about it. In your own experience, what do you experience on any given day? How would you describe that, what you go through?
I don't know if it's easy to articulate the baseline of mental health or mental health conditions. I think it's easier to articulate the acute phases of mental health conditions. So having anxiety, it's definitely easier to articulate panic. It's definitely easier to articulate like hyper-stressful periods of time, which is frustrating because I think it's actually more important that humanity develops a better sense of the baseline mental health conditions rather than the acute points, because the acute points are a result. They're an effect. They're not the cause. So if we could actually get more in tune with the baseline, then you would be able to take more proactive measures.
And what's the baseline for you?
I'm still trying to get in touch with that. I think the baseline for me has everything to do with sleep. I don't sleep well. I haven't slept well since I was like 13 years old. And I'm sure like 100 years from now, they'll figure out something scientifically that links like an accumulation of poor sleep over time to stress levels and stress levels to cancer cells. And those things like are on our horizons. Nobody wants to work hard enough to find those solutions and those answers. And, that's just where we're at. But it's well within our grasp. It's well within our field of vision to see that like everybody thinks like the carcinogens in the air are what cause cancer, or the things that they're putting in the food, or smoking, which those things may be causing cancer too, but like nobody wants to think that maybe stress causes cancer.
Oh yeah, stress it's huge. Stress is a killer, yeah.
But you know how scary it is for people to think that? Because everybody deals with stress.
Oh yeah.
It makes you more comfortable to say that, if I eat organically, then I'll be getting away from cancer, or if a heart disease, or everybody's trying to get away from the big enchilada, death. So it's like people you'll fool yourself into thinking like some fairy tale that's like so far from the truth just because of our knowledge. But knowledge continues to grow over time incrementally, but right now I just feel like we're underutilizing what's right in front of us. Like stress is, every day people are proving the impact that stress has on the entire physiological and psychological makeup. So like, to go circle back, sleep is so important. Everybody knows it. And mine isn't well. Like I haven't slept well. And I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Like even the studies that say like, even if you get 3 hours of sleep, but you get 3 hours of sleep consistently, then you're doing well. I don't know. I'm not a sleep scientist. I have no clue. I would like to know more, but I would say the baseline is sleep. Like my sleep is irregular, and I'm sure that has an effect on my health. Definitely has an effect on my anxiety. So,
for you, the anxiety, the panic attacks, can you trace it back to a moment to when you remember these first occurring for you?
Yeah, my first big out-of-body experience panic attack was like 16. Smoked marijuana with some friends, was hit after that. Yeah, it was like 3 months after that I was having tremors, they call them, panic tremors, or actually they're more like post-traumatic stress tremors of, that out-of-body experience was so bad that I was actually having panic about the out-of-body experience, not like just general panic. And then that kind of just turned into general panic after the 3 months. But the first 3 months I was having like, I would smell something that I had smelled that night and I'd go into a panic attack. Or a muscle in my chest would tighten the way it did that night and I'd go into a panic attack. Then later on it would be like, I'm not feeling so well today because I ate the wrong shit. Maybe that sends me into panic attack because of the nausea paired association. Okay. So, that was a really big one for me. But after I learned about anxiety and like panic attacks and I had some, I started to remember having them as a young child, like 8, 9, like on my way to a basketball game and throwing up like in the morning, on my way to a tournament an hour out and throwing up, like, or being at practice and throwing up, or going with my family somewhere, maybe, and having panic attacks or symptoms like that. I started to remember them more after I had the big one. So,
in a panic attack for you, what does that look like? What does that feel like?
It feels like the devil just fucking rammed his foot up your ass. It feels like, yeah, you're dying, highway to hell type of thing.
As you're going through these experiences, you mentioned being a teenager, or even looking back to the time you're 8 years old. I mean, I'm assuming at this point in your life, you feel a certain way, but you can't necessarily articulate it. There's not a definition for it or a diagnosis for it yet. When does that come for you, when you can put a word to what you're experiencing and say, this is anxiety or this is something else?
Yeah, that came right around 16. 17, I was diagnosed at 17. Year later, probably a year and some months later. School-based mental health system, which I think every public school system in the world should have. Brilliant, middle-aged woman doctor, family practitioner that just happened to donate her time with her group of doctors to our high school, and she was right there on staff. And I came in one day and was like, yeah, I'm having feelings like I'm dying every day. What is going on? Am I dying? Like, just let's take me to the hospital, actually. I think I probably need to go to the ER. And she's like, no, I think you're probably dealing with some panic attacks. So let's do this questionnaire here and see how you deal with that, and then we'll go from there. Then I actually did end up going and getting the test done just to, check out my baseline health, which I had been extremely concerned about because, and here's one of those, did the chicken come before the egg type of things. Growing up in a blue-collar family, single mother, where that your insurance and your regular health checkups haven't been probably what they should have been. Like at 8 and 9, you don't know that. But right around like 14, 15, you start to know like, I really don't see the doctor probably as much as I should. And is that an underlying trigger of anxiety or panic? The great mystery of your own health once you become conscious of it. Like there's so much to unravel there, you know what I mean? So, but initially my anxiety was a lot about my general health. And once we, checked my heart and some other things, we were confident that those weren't factors or primary factors in what I was dealing with. Like I wasn't having heart attacks or heart failure type of symptoms, then we knew it was probably anxiety. But what's even more insane than that is I still have panic attacks to this day. And my first reaction is still that they're heart attacks. Not because I think that they're heart attacks, but when I was 8, 9 years old, one of my best friends in grade school collapsed at a basketball practice that I was at. We were at together doing conditioning drills. And he came across the line doing a conditioning drill and he just collapsed, drooling, couldn't breathe, clearly in pain. Dad was the assistant coach, had to pick him up, put him in the ambulance, followed the ambulance to the hospital, spinal tap, open heart surgery, 9 years old. Of course I think I'm having a heart attack when I feel like I can't fucking breathe. Like, That's not even a shocker. That's just like, of course. But try telling your basketball coach when you line up for a conditioning drill that's the reason why you probably can't do it, you know?
Right.
The understanding is just so far from where we actually are. The understanding to be able to support people to deal with where we actually are as a species is sometimes astounding to me.
When you get this diagnosis, does that change things for you? How does it change things for you if it does, to finally have a word for it and a bit of a plan as to how to approach it?
It was the best thing for me. Man, it was a load off, especially for people who are dealing with panic attacks. I mean, I think because the nature of panic attacks themselves come out of the blue, so to speak, so much, with no warning, they're much different than other mental health conditions. Like depression usually comes with some significant signs like sadness and hopelessness, even like OCD has signs like, yeah, I got to tap my finger, like that's a signal. So when I start to get stressed when I can't tap my finger, I'm not surprised. Anxiety and panic attacks pop up on you out of the blue. So I think the first thing that people with that specific mental health condition need is a word to put to it. And that gave me great clarity, at least for a moment in time, until my mind was able to convince myself that maybe the doctors don't know as much as they think they do. But that's like with anything, so.
For you, when you're on a basketball court, does that change? Are you having anxiety and panic attacks on the court? And so how does that change for you?
No, I never really have panic attacks on the court. I really don't remember many times. Like, I've never had a full-blown panic attack on the court. I have had nervous symptoms that I felt were very similar to some of the anxiety symptoms that I have felt. But you got to realize, like, I just turned 26 this year, so 10 years of being aware of what anxiety is and constantly paying attention to and logging those symptoms in my head to give myself reference when they come up again. I felt everything you could possibly feel. So, I mean, my face getting tight in a game, maybe because my sinuses, maybe because it's dry in the arena, might, to me, feel like an anxiety symptom because at some point I probably have had tight face type of symptoms with anxiety. I've never actually had a full blown out panic attack where I couldn't play or I couldn't be out there on the floor or I had to go to the back or anything like that. In fact, I actually had a game recently where I had not eaten or slept for about 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half, and was so like physically fatigued that I was feeling anxiety symptoms, and I was able to actually get through the entire game with a little bit of faint, lightheaded feeling, finished the game, won the game, had like 35 points, and then fainted after the game. And then I was having a panic attack because I fainted, not because of what I was feeling, just because I actually fainted. So, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how dynamic mental health conditions can be. Like I played an entire game that was physically exuding, and you would think that would give me the panic, the pressure of that, and it wasn't. It was actually blacking out in the unknown of, I haven't really blacked out many times. So.
What's going on in the 2 weeks leading up to that when you're not eating or sleeping for all that time?
Oh, man, just life. Yeah, just life.
I want to go back to 5 years ago. You're at Iowa State. You are one of the top prospects, one of the top college basketball players in the United States, and the NBA draft is coming up. You know where you stand amongst your peers at the time. What are you hearing from NBA owners, GMs, sort of the rumblings about how your history with mental health and you being public about it is affecting your draft stock?
I was hearing a lot of different things, but all along the same line of people were doubtful and didn't believe that I would be able to make it as a professional athlete because of anxiety, but more so because of their lack of understanding of mental health in general. It wasn't really because of anxiety. That's just the name they put on it, which is detrimental. But yeah, I was hearing all kinds of stuff. Like clearly, one or two best players in the country. And there's no disrespect to Anthony Davis, but at the time I was better than Anthony Davis. Now, what's interesting about professional sports is when you take a kid from college where he's living below the poverty line, okay, for sure living below the poverty line. Just throw that out there for a conversation another date. And you put him in a situation where now he has $1 billion corporation invested in making him the best basketball player he can be, you're probably going to become a pretty good basketball player. So I say that to say, like, Anthony Davis' freshman year at Kentucky and Anthony Davis now are two completely different players. And the Anthony Davis that was at Kentucky wasn't better than the Royce White that was at Iowa State. As far as it's kept, the Anthony Davis that's in New Orleans now might not be better than the Royce White that plays for London Lightning. We don't know. But he definitely wasn't better than me then. We can say that for sure, based on just like watching. I mean, you just watch the tape and you can see that it's not even my skill. My skill set is just different than his anyway. Like, I'm a point center. He's a center. He plays center because he's a center. I play the one, but I have a center body. Or vice versa. I play center and I have one skills. So, yeah, I mean, I was clearly 1 or 2, and they were talking about me possibly getting drafted late in the second round. I mean, how fucking absurd is that? Clearly about mental health or lack of understanding of mental health. It's nothing else to it.
So your draft day comes around and you're there with a whole gymnasium full of people who are waiting to find out where you're going to end up. What's going through your head at the time as you see the picks come in and you're still waiting to hear your name called?
Going through my head. I mean, I guess I was probably thinking the most, if I don't get drafted, how disappointed other people in this gym going to be. I really wasn't going to be that I wasn't going to be that hurt by it, because I kind of, this mental health battle that I took on, I knew from before I even declared from the draft. I was in tune with it. I've been a mental health advocate consciously, since I was 19. So I kind of already was dealing with that, even going through the draft process that was 2-3 months long, of what if this doesn't go the way I think it's going to go. But the people in that room just showed up that day, it's like hoping for the best. And, to disappoint them would probably been what I was thinking about most. And then I remember thinking about, God, the NCAA fucked me on trying to get a transfer waiver coming from the University of Minnesota, in which I had 3 doctors send letters on my behalf saying that me moving from Minnesota and the University of Minnesota had everything to do with the proper way and adequate way to be able to treat my anxiety, or to deal with my anxiety, or to deal with my anxiety as being a collegiate athlete. And the NCAA just fucking wiped their ass with those 3 letters, I guess. I don't know what they're doing at that fucking office, but it sure as hell isn't anything that's just or fair or consistent. And I guess I was kind of probably thinking a couple times, I wonder if I'll be able to go to the NCAA if I don't get drafted and be able to find a way to get back into school, even though I had an agent and things like that. So that crossed my mind too.
At this time, draft day happens, you fall to the Houston Rockets, or the Houston Rockets take you at number 16. And what happens after that point is a lot of, the Rockets saying this, and the league saying this, and the media saying this, all to do with you and flying, or not being okay with flying.
Right.
What are you feeling on the other end of things? What's your story from that whole experience with the franchise and what happened in your NBA span?
Let me give you a short version, but not the shortest version. Basically, there are multiple hierarchies within the NBA. You have your team and its hierarchy, and then you have the league and its hierarchy, and then by way of their collective beliefs. And early on, I came into contact with all 3 of them because of what I was saying and because of what I was dealing with. So because I came into contact with all 3 of them, different pieces of that hierarchy had to respond publicly to what I was saying to deal with what they were dealing with. My team had to come up with the reason why they drafted me. They had to come up with the reason why it wasn't working out. They had to come up with a reason why you could trust them in the future with the draft. They had to come up with a reason why all of these things. They had to come up with a reason why I was saying that they weren't adequately supporting me. All of these things they had to answer. They had to answer these questions. And then by way of now the league has to answer a similar set of questions. And nobody wants to look like they're incompetent. Nobody wants to look like they're not handling something professionally or with a lot of grace or a lot of information, misinformed. And that's really what happened in a nutshell. Like, I was drafted. Everybody knew I had anxiety disorder. I talked about it in college with national publications. Like, if you go back to Sports Illustrated, the first one that LeBron won, after LeBron's feature in that Sports Illustrated, there was a feature on me. And I talked about my anxiety in that feature. But more importantly, I also talked about politics. And that's a piece of my story that's gone, not untold, but very quietly mentioned as to the conflict between me and the NBA. It's bigger than mental health. It's more about politics. And I'm not talking like politics like basketball politics. I'm talking like politics, geopolitical politics, big ideas that we don't see eye to eye on. And they knew that. And they knew that then, and they were tipped off on that then by things that I was saying, but they came to know it more intimately the more we got into the conversations about mental health. Through that conversation became a conduit of just how different we are politically, myself and at least the people that I was dealing with. I can't speak for the entire NBA, but as they say, often birds of a feather flock together. So I think that, ultimately, when I challenged the mental health policy behind closed doors and begged the question along with the doctors that have supported me up until that point and said, hey, how is it possible that we don't actually have any concrete mental health policy in this league? How is this possible? And how is it possible that you guys have punitive drug abuse policies that would take a kid 19 years old or 20 years old who comes from a blue-collar community that's riddled with poverty and untreated mental health conditions and crime and all the things that you guys lobby politically to not change every 4 years or 2 years or whenever the fuck you do your lobbying, you lobby to not change those conditions for those kids. And then when they come with drinking and marijuana problems, you want to fucking penalize them? Like, it's not enough for you that young, low and middle class men, specifically black men or men of color, are criminalized and institutionalized and imprisoned for these vices that they pick up from their condition. That's not enough for you guys? You want to penalize the guys that even make it through that fucking conundrum and get to this level. You want to penalize them too? Jesus, man, you guys, how much do you want? If you want my blood, here, I'm in the room with you now. Just fucking take it. But just say that. Don't pussyfoot around like you're this and you're that and we care and we care if young black kids read and we care if young black kids go to school. No, the fuck you don't. No, the fuck you don't. And if I have to be the first 21-year-old to tell you that I see you for who you are, then God, thank you for allowing me to be that. What a fucking privilege. What a fucking privilege. So you can see how the conversation was barely about mental health from that point already. This shit's political. So, of course, like, people who would do that, of course they don't have a mental health policy. Why would we want to be any more responsible for these young players that we really don't care anything about?
At this time, what are you asking for from your franchise in order to support you as a player, in order to be the best that you can be?
I asked them to not allow general managers, coaches, even owners, people that have no idea what it means to adequately support mental health or health in general for that matter, to be able to make decisions, final decisions on health-based matters, period. It's the same way that you wouldn't have somebody come inspect this building who's not trained or even versed in how to inspect a building. You wouldn't do it. It'd be ludicrous in opinion, but it'd be like negligent in operation. It'd be insane to do. And that's all that we asked for. And they came back with all these different, caveats and things that, problems that they saw, which were valid in some cases. I mean, they were somewhat valid, right? Like, one of the things I heard was, well, if we let you have a doctor that's independent of the team doctor, which I really didn't ask for, but they created what I was asking for and then argued that, right? So I really didn't ask to have an independent doctor. I asked that their team doctor not be influenced by their general manager. And if that's not possible, then we do need an independent doctor. Mm-hmm. They can accommodate the first one, so now we're moving to plan B, and plan B does maybe involve an independent doctor because you guys' inability to govern the team's operational structure. And they were like, well, if we gave you an independent doctor, then every team's going to ask for an independent doctor. And that'd be like 400 doctors potentially. Not that, like there was never even a thought that, all of this was bullshit arguments. All of this was bullshit points to try and petty fault the conversation. Like never once did they think like, well, we probably won't need 400 doctors. Maybe we'll get a doctor for every 20 players or every 30 players. Or maybe even every 10 players, which would be like 40 doctors, not 400. But even saying like 400 doctors, like that's a lot. And the reasons why they said it was a lot were really weird too. Like we'd have to vet out every doctor. The last time I checked, the vetting process of the medical boards are some of the most stringent in all of profession in America. That's why it's so prestigious to become a doctor. And what would make the NBA think that their vetting is any better than the medical boards? Especially when I'm talking to people who haven't acknowledged the importance of health. Why would you even be involved in the vetting process? The fact that you even believe that you would have a right or a place to vet doctors is arrogant. It's scarily arrogant. Like what vetting are you going to do other than to ask somebody who knows? So, these are the conversations that were happening where like the facts were really obvious is that people, when money's involved, when reputation and professional movement is involved, that people will exhibit oversight. And depending on those people's influence on other people, that can become very dangerous. And we've seen it before. Like, it's not a new thing. All the time, corporations and groups of people are making decisions with oversight that end up harming other people because of their ambition or whatever it is. But it just so happens that this one has not really been discussed with the NBA. Now, at the same time, their counterpart, the NFL, we just saw that exact thing happen. So it's not that shocking. Shouldn't be. It's just shocking the level at which it happens. Like the vetting thing really bothered me. We'd have to vet all of those doctors. Like, and you think that, first of all, you think that that's not a sacrifice that you should be willing to make? That's not time well spent? Okay, and even beyond that, again, like your vetting is better than the medical boards? That worries me that you even would say that out loud. That worries me that you said that in your head and it sounded like it made sense. Or you take me for a fucking idiot, and that worries me too. Because I'm clearly here talking about a policy that was a part of your oversight, so I'm clearly not an idiot. Either way, you're detached from what's really going on in front of you, and I'm not. And I'm worried because we're sitting here at a table and we're trying to come up with a solution and come to a result that's based on logic and that's based on science, medicine, humanity, and you're not attached to the common struggle, to the common facts, to anything common. You're like off in fucking fairy tale land. I don't even know.
One thing that brings this all to mind to me is you say this on Twitter. It's the only thing that's posted on your bio. It's bigger than me.
Yeah.
I mean, that really says it all, doesn't it? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, we just talking about, I guess in my story, the biggest correlation to it is what was dangled in front of me, the things that were placed on the other side of my moral code. And these are the vices that they tried to dangle in front of me and say, you can stay on the path of self-righteousness, self-righteous indignation, but you won't have these things. And I am 100% proud of the people that influenced my youth and the way that I was raised and the man that I am, that I could look those people in the face and go, fuck you. Take the shit that you think is important and you douse yourself in it and you let it set ablaze from within. And that's what it's done. And I've said this before. It almost sounds like I dislike them. I don't.
NBA.
The NBA. Or capitalists.
Right.
Or serial capitalists. I don't dislike them. I feel bad for them. Because I toted that line, I know how easy it would be to get caught in that. You know what I mean? Like, so, and I use the example, like, my cap goes off to him because Of course they would think that they could dangle those things in front of me, because how many young black men have taken that bait? They created the system where young black men need those things or feel deprived of those things. So when they're introduced to them, they would do anything for them. And they know that because they wrote the rules of the game. Right. They wrote the rules of the system. So you get confused in thinking that because it's a Michael Jordan and he's the best basketball player you've ever seen, that he owns his own voice. That's a mistake. It's an overestimation to oversight. And it's not an oversight that they made. They know he don't own his own voice. That's why they gave him what they gave him. And we were talking about it like who he is. Who has he been? A 50-year-old man who comes out at the pinnacle of a fire between cop and civilian relations, where young black men are getting killed with very little consequence. With very, very little consequence. And I'm not here to say who did what, because I wasn't there. And as a mental health advocate and somebody who's very sympathetic to the human psyche, I also know that there are plenty of cops who are involved in situations where they do feel like they're in danger, where their life is in danger, and it may not be, but they may really believe that. And that's another mental health conversation. But so is racism. Both of them are. Both mental health conversations. But regardless, the conversation we're having now is how a 50-year-old man, 50-plus-year-old man, who has been at the peak of pop culture for black figures, could utter the words, "I can't sit by any longer," and not say anything. Were you proud of that? You're proud of that? I mean, it's so embarrassing. I was embarrassed by that. If I was him, I'd be embarrassed. Whoever his team is that helps him strategize what he says. The first thing you probably should have said was, "I apologize for not speaking sooner." Mm-hmm. Not, "I can't sit by and not say anything any longer." The fuck are you talking about? And you think that this is what, an offering? That what, better late than never coming from you? No, you stay on the fucking sidelines then. If that's where you were comfortable after the last 25 fucking years while you became a billionaire and ate at the same table as they did. And made your fucking money with Phil Knight and all those other people who have exhibited just as little care about the situation as you have. You go sit at the table with them then. And that's not to pick on Phil Knight. Like, all in all, Phil Knight, you're not black. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is what it is. Like, I love Nike. But how does a Michael Jordan not go to his Nike partners and say, "Look, how is it okay that young black men are getting shot in the street? Are we okay with that?" How is it that he felt so scared about his relationship with those partners, or whoever it was that he was scared of his relationship with those partners, that he sat by for decades and didn't say shit?
So we have an environment where those who are going to make the most money and succeed by the terms of what's deemed success, making the most money, is going to be somebody like a Michael Jordan who remains as apolitical as possible. Yeah. Eschews any type of opinion, whereas you would have somebody on the other spectrum, like a Colin Kaepernick, who uses a voice and suddenly finds himself ostracized from the NFL. Of course. Where do you find yourself in all of this in terms of feeling the pressures, I'm sure?
In truth. I'm anchored in truth. I'm anchored in truth. I'm there with Gandhi. I'm there with thinkers, thought leaders. I'm there with Elon Musk. You know what I mean? I'm there with men who see truth. And it goes back to what you said. You hit the nail right on the head. Is success defined by how much money you make? Yeah. There's a lot of people who've taken that bait. At 50, I'm not going to have that. At 50, I'm going to be able to tell my grandkids at 21, I anchored myself in truth.
The numbers are clear, if you ask me. If you look at how many players are in the NBA, if you look at a sample of 400 people, there's going to be a percentage of those with similar issues that you've experienced, mental health issues, things that need to be addressed. Why haven't we heard more athletes be vocal about that? Why haven't we heard more stories like that?
I mean, you haven't heard it because people make the mistake of thinking that the people that they idolize have a voice or own their voice. And it's just not the case. Just because somebody has reached what you believe to be a higher place in life or more a place in life with more access, or a place in life with more fruit that's more fruitful, more materials, more, I guess the best word is access, right? Has no bearing on their ability to own their own voice.
So you think it's athletes being told stick to sports, more or less, as far as what they're able to talk about?
It's athletes being very afraid of owning their own voice. I mean, I can't tell you how young it was where I was aware that the microscope that was on an elite prep athlete was not only about whether I was doing things that were right or wrong, but whether I was even doing something that would be perceived as not worth the time, right? And that line gets murky. And I said this to Esquire recently, is like philosophy even, because they asked me, is like, you sound like it's like a philosopher, right? And I'm like, okay. Well then, why is that? Do you think that hurts you? Yeah, philosophy is seen as a distraction in a league that's about hyper-competitiveness and tunnel vision. Think about Kobe Bryant for a second. In all of his fucking greatness, quote unquote, I don't give a fuck about him. Like, honestly, I admired his game. I told you at the time, I grew up in the 90s and 2000s. Like, I loved watching him play. I think he's a fantastic basketball player, and he seems like a really smart guy also, and he learned 7 languages. That's interesting. That's cool as hell. But, I'm not enamored with Kobe Bryant to ignore the fact that I actually heard this guy say once that he works out until he blacks out. Like, that's healthy. That's not fucking healthy. It's insane.
And that's a model that other people are hearing that and then trying to do themselves.
Yeah, they're emulating it. They're emulating it like it makes sense. And then a general manager gets to use the false thing that Kobe says to judge the next player and go, well, if you're not working out till you're blacking out, then you're probably not doing enough.
Right, that becomes the standard then.
The fuck? It's like I'm living in a fucking parody, honestly. And then to have those same people look at me and call me crazy to the Yahoos and the fucking USA Todays of the world, I'm sitting in my house like, this is like Saturday Night Live or something. And then to watch fans get the information and actually repeat it. And for that piece, I feel more bad than I am upset or frustrated, because I understand the media is so good at what they do that headlines have become a beast that even they can't even control, right? And for that reason, Twitter took that and put it on steroids, because it became all headlines. Before, you had a newspaper, and even if you looked at the headline, you see it, there's a body of work there usually, even if you read the first paragraph. Now on Twitter, you could just see only a headline and move on to the next headline, and before you know it, you're reading all headlines. Mm-hmm. That made it another beast. And I actually happened to get drafted into the NBA when Twitter was really starting to boom. It was 2010, I would say, 2011, where Twitter was really taking off, and into those early teens, Twitter became the news. But as to where before it was a social media platform, then it became the news as well, transformed. So, I don't feel as frustrated with the fans as I do the actual media themselves that were putting the stories out. Do you feel any sense of social responsibility? I don't know.
And for you, as somebody who is in the public sphere, in the public eye, to have an outlet like Twitter come out as you're an athlete at that time, is that empowering to you to circumvent the conventional going to a newspaper or a TV station or the conventional mass media, or is that a distraction? Is it how would you approach it?
It is what you make it. I felt like I was given as much fight as I could with what I had. All I had was my Twitter. I can't control what USA Today does with their Twitter. I can't control what Adrian Wojnarowski does with his Twitter. I can't control what the Houston Rockets do with their Twitter. I can control what Royce White does with his Twitter. And when I say that about media, I don't mean all media. Because if you look at it, there's been so many media outlets that have done my story justice, have written the right things, but those have never become the mainstream. They've never become the story that held the day. Even if you go to Wikipedia and you look at my bio and how people are talking about me or what they're saying in there, and you look at the sources as to how they compiled that, they came from a very skewed group of sources. And that becomes the information that people get. And it wouldn't be important if this, and I said this before, and I said this because David Stern at one point didn't want to meet with me, but he told me to stay off of Twitter. And it really pissed me off because 2-3 nights before, I had a 13-year-old girl tell me that she had attempted suicide before and that she was inspired by my story and felt like it gave her hope. So I felt like David Stern, again, was detached from common struggle and didn't give a fuck about the 13-year-old girl. Maybe not consciously, but in his incompetence or in his negligence or in his detachment from the common struggle, he had actually detached from his ability to positively affect that young girl. So fuck him. That's how I feel. I don't really have time to mince words with people like that. We're too far down the line to negotiate what's clearly right and wrong. Whether or not mental health is important and should be in policy is not a hard conversation, period. If you don't agree on it, you're doing it because you have an agenda that's based on greed, selfishness, and irresponsibility. So what I mean is when he told me he wouldn't meet with me, David Stern, I was mortified by that. And it really put in perspective for me the power that the media had at that point right there. Because whatever information he had gotten from whatever source it was from, I could tell was affected by the media heavily. And he didn't see this as something that was important, where a 21-year-old kid might have something of value to say. And it might affect a lot of people. He only saw this as a problem that needed to be doused, that needed to be drowned. And that time period put a lot of things in perspective.
How do you summarize that time period? Looking back at your NBA career, there's the stats. They show three games played, 3 minutes. And ESPN put out a list at one point, and they rank you last among NBA players. Yeah. Looking back on it now, being out the other side of that time period, how do you view it?
Who the fuck even puts those lists together? Honestly, it's weird, man. It's weird that people who don't play the game get to rank the game. I always say that talent exists beyond the people that broker it, the people that buy, sell, and trade it. Talent doesn't exist there. It exists on another plane. And for me, I'm glad you brought that up. It's like a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's just, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. That list means absolutely nothing. It's compiled and created every year just as a piece of media and time to fill a gap, to access a market, to create a opinion or a polarization of opinion based on nothing. It really, like, seriously. You're ranking me last based on what? I didn't even play. So just leave me out. But you put me last, what, for a reason? And what reason would that be? Was it because I said that mental health was important? Who's writing the list? Do you really feel comfortable with? These are the things I start to think about. Mm-hmm. Do you not have anybody in your family that deals with mental health? Do you realize that I was actually fighting for them? And you put that list together and you didn't see any harm in ranking me last. And did you go to your editor and go, we're not putting Royce White last? That's fucking ridiculous. That guy didn't even get a chance to play. No, you probably didn't. Why? Because we all exhibit a little irresponsibility, or else the world wouldn't be where it is.
I want to ask you about a quote of yours. This is something that you told the Gazette in a different interview. You said, I looked at a $100 million career in the face and put it on the line just to say that mental health is important for 15 minutes. Yeah. Can you dig into that?
Yeah, that's what I did. I see mental health as the key to humanity's evolution. I don't see mental health as the DSM or diagnosis or how many psychiatric beds there are at ERs or hospitals, how expensive health care or psychiatric care is. All of those things are important, extremely important. Don't get me wrong. They're so much more important than things that we have prioritized today, for sure. But I see mental health as even bigger than that and more encompassing than that. I see mental health as the way that we think and we feel and the way that we interact with each other every day, every single person that's walking this planet. And when we become in tune with that and when we become committed to getting great results there, a lot of the other problems that we have given domain to will go away, or we'll at least get better results. It's not a hard concept. Like, the way that we think and we feel affects every single thing that we talk about, all social issues. Crime, employment, education, racism, global conflicts, health, obviously, relationships, family life, employment. So, like, that's my view of mental health. And in the world that I live in, that's based on humanity moving forward, 15 minutes for mental health is worth $100 million. Like, it'd be like, would I pay $100 million for mental health to have a 15-minute ad space for the world to see? Yeah. And when I say 15 minutes, I don't mean 15 minutes. I mean, as long as I'm able to live, which is a blimp in time for humanity and the human species, that's worth $100 million, because you best believe I'm going to say mental health as many fucking times as I can.
Mm-hmm. The things that we're talking about tonight, the things that you've brought up, it goes so far beyond the boundaries of a basketball court. It's about much more than that. And also, I think if you look at the span of a basketball career, it's a very short period of time when you talk about somebody's life. What is life for you beyond basketball? What are the things that matter most to you when you look at where you want to invest the years in your life to come?
I guess, it's about time, patience. I think that where I'm at in my journey to this point, for whatever reason, something I have to look at myself and really go back and dissect and think, why am I this way? I mean, I think we all are searching for that answer within the way that we live our lives, and within the way that we live our lives relative to the things around us is what's within. How did I become who I am? And that helps us better be able to navigate what we do with who we are. But for whatever reason, who I am and the things that have happened that have made me who I am today feel extremely invested in the human species. Not me, not you, not John here, not Mike, not even just my wife or my kids or my mother or my kids' kids, but like all of us. And I don't feel any shame in that. I feel like comfortable with that. And I feel comfortable that I can influence that and impact that in a positive way, like in a way that's really meaningful and can really help a lot of people. And it's not really like a grandiose thing, because it's like, how can I help just a little bit? How can I move the needle forward just a little bit? How can we even climb 10 feet? How can we climb 20 feet? How can we climb 100 feet? We're thousands and thousands of yards deep in a social fabric that has completely undermined the way that we are fundamentally built as a species.
I want to ask you, we'll finish up with this one last question. Looking at your life and how you've dealt with mental health issues, I want you to think about, first of all, what anxiety, and not just anxiety, but the spectrum of what you experience, what it's taken from you, but also what your experience has given to you.
It's taken a lot of emotion. It's taken me on a lot of emotions. It's taken me into a lot of emotions and around a lot of emotions and through a lot of emotions. It's all different things. But it's given me a profound connection with common struggle and ultimately death, which is what the human species is ultimately opposite of at all times, is death and despair. And I've become intimate with that, close with that struggle through my own experience. Like, when you have panic attacks and you feel like you're going to die, your brain tells itself that it's going to die. So you look death in the face. Like, when people say near-death experience, people who have panic attacks have that all the time. And it puts life in a great perspective. It puts time in a great perspective, and appreciation in a great perspective. And, ultimately, that 13-year-old girl, I didn't even have to see her face to feel connected and to feel responsible for her.
Okay, I have to ask you one more question. Well, when you bring it back to that 13-year-old girl, when you have somebody like her reach out to you, and I'm sure she's not the only one who has, but to hear her say, "You've given me another reason to live. You've given me inspiration." What does that do for you?
It's very reaffirming. It drowns out all the bullshit, all the superficial aesthetics that we put on ourselves to make ourselves look however we think we need to look to whoever we think we need to look it to. It just strips all that away, and it's like at the bare bones of it, I actually was able to influence this person's life in a positive way. And it wasn't because I had been an all-star in the NBA. It wasn't because people have seen me come pull up to the fucking ESPYs in a limousine and I have some pretty girl on my arm and I have a bow tie and I won some award and I got on stage and I did the Black Power fist and in salute of some pseudo social political stance. No. It was subtle. All I did was get drafted because I was talented enough to. And when the time came for me to speak, I spoke to her. And man, what a privilege. What a gift that she gave me to be able to open my eyes to that at 21 in a space where I could have easily been irrationally enamored with what was in front of me. With a LeBron James, with a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant. Anybody. You could throw any star, any celebrity in there, anybody with access in there, and how easily I could have been enamored with what that is and what that actually gives to you and what it's worth versus what it's really worth. She gave that to me. And a bunch of other people have too.
Thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you.
That's it for the show. Thanks for listening, and I hope you liked it. Royce is one of those athletes whose stories I remember reading about years ago and never forgetting. It was great to hear it all straight from the source. If you like the show, it's on all your favorite podcast apps. Do me a favor, subscribe and leave a rating while you're there, or pass it along to someone you think might enjoy it. Theme music for the show is by Dr. Turtle off the album You I'll Ah. I'm Martin Bauman, and this was A Story Untold. See you next time.